Last week, I got 2 hours of hands-on time with Devil May Cry 5, which was nowhere near enough time to explore the intricate depths of what is shaping up to be another best-in-class combat system, but was just about enough time for me to realise that Capcom has done it again. Devil May Cry 5 feels fantastic to play, whether you're playing as Nero, Dante, or V, a revolutionary new character we'll get to in a bit. My hands-on with the game got me thinking, why does Devil May Cry feel so good? Devil May Cry 5 has all the elements you'd expect from the series, overblown cutscenes that power hose your senses with slow-mo sweeps of physics-defying athleticism, gruesome enemies that look freshly spat out from the 8th circle of hell, and crucially, combat so silky it basically ruins the entire action genre. But other games have mad cutscenes, hello Metal Gear Solid, gruesome enemies, and showy combat, and yet Devil May Cry feels so unique. Why? I've had a think, which was difficult, I won't lie, and come up with 5 reasons I think Devil May Cry feels so damn good. The first reason is intimacy. Intimacy with your enemies, that is. Normally, video game combat is all about batting things away from you, blasting them away, punching them away, shouting them away. As gamers, and maybe just as people actually, we are hardwired to increase the distance between ourselves and things that want to kill us. So, whereas combat in most games is like, get away from me, Devil May Cry is all like, come here. It's about getting up close and personal. You want to be able to feel that demon breath on your neck. You want to see every pus-filled inch of monster flesh before you meticulously carve it open and spill S-ranks all over your screen. And so Devil May Cry's moves list is full of techniques that allow you to get closer to your enemies. Dante's Stinger attack, for example, is a sharp burst of aggressive acceleration designed to let you close the distance between you and your enemy in a split second. Similarly, you've got techniques that allow you to launch enemies into the air and then, by holding down triangle, follow them up there. Hitting demons away from you in Devil May Cry is only ever a precursor to yo-yoing them back in again, continuing the combo, not letting them out of your grasp. In Devil May Cry 5, Nero can use his Devil Breakers, which are like detachable explosive arms that replace his demon arm from Devil May Cry 4 for plot reasons we won't go into here. He can use these as a grapple, either yanking smaller enemies towards him or pulling himself towards bigger enemies like Goliath here. This closeness gives Devil May Cry's combat a rare warmth. You're not just popping R2 when distant collections of polygons stray into your aiming reticule. It's more like an intimate dance, a stylishly violent death waltz where you learn your enemy's footwork and then perfect your own in response, dodging, rolling, slashing and shooting your way to that elusive triple S. So elusive you can't even see it in this video for reasons we don't need to go into. Basically, this feels great to play because it's like a performance. I distinctly remember times in Devil May Cry's past where I'd finish an encounter and just sit there, breathless, desperate to show someone what I'd just done. There's like an extra level of personal pride and satisfaction when you nail combat in Devil May Cry, and this leads on to the second reason I think it feels so good, the deliberateness of the combat. Ask your average human what they think of DMC's combat and they will likely call it something like cinematic or showy, and I don't necessarily think this is true. I mean, sure, it looks amazing when you play it well, but calling Devil May Cry's combat showy suggests a shallowness, like simplicity garnished with flair, style over substance, and this is absolutely not the case. In fact, put Devil May Cry in the hands of a novice and the combat will more than likely look a bit clumsy, flailing swords in midair and shooting at nothing in particular. I've captured some of this just for educational purposes. The point is, Devil May Cry only looks good if you are good at it. Nothing happens by accident. Every sword sweep, every juggle, every grapple, every dodge and every twirl is a response to player input. In other titles, you might press triangle to initiate a cinematic attack, and with one button press it'll look incredible and you'll most likely be very pleased with yourself. In Devil May Cry, press triangle once and Nero will do this. One swipe with his sword. Press triangle, triangle, triangle and he'll perform his most basic of combos. Quickly tap triangle twice, pause, then tap triangle again 4 more times and you get this twirly combo, perfect for clawing groups of enemies into one deliciously hackable mass. Or you can press triangle, wait for the exact frame where Nero's sword is right back here, then hit triangle again to initiate a brutal series of pounding attacks, perfect for hammering downed enemies into submission and, as you can see here, punishing those floor tiles you really don't like. And this is just scratching the surface. Unlock each character's full moveset and, more importantly, learn all the moves, and you'll be pulling off combat sequences that wouldn't look out of place in a Hollywood action movie. But crucially, they are your moves. Everything Dante, Nero and V do is input by you. As outrageous as the combat looks, there are no frills, there's no cinematic excess. Every action is a result of a precise, deliberately timed button press, and that feels good. On a primal level, we enjoy video games because it's satisfying having our thoughts translated into on-screen action. When that on-screen action perfectly matches what we have in our mind, that is when video games feel good. And that's why I think Devil May Cry is so satisfying to play. But entry number 3, now we're going to talk about V, the newest addition to Devil May Cry's playable roster, and how he completely altered my perception of how combat works in the series. For the uninitiated, V is physically very vulnerable, at least compared to Dante and Nero. He can't take on demons by himself, instead relying on Shadow and Griffin, 2 creatures he's able to summon to do the dirty work for him before swooping in for the killing blow. Incidentally, fans of DMC will probably recognise Shadow and Griffin from Devil May Cry 1 back on PS2. Anyway, fighting as V is like having an out-of-body experience. You soon realise the fundamentals are unchanged. Shadow is essentially the melee weapon and Griffin the ranged attack, but in removing the personal intimacy and taking a step back from the combat, you'll suddenly have a new appreciation for how battles in Devil May Cry flow. If Dante and Nero are like A-list movie stars, then V is the director, hovering on the fringes of the action and shaping it with a view on the wider picture. You'll get a new understanding of how to effectively move enemies where you want them. Combat becomes less reactive, more about thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. You can still juggle enemies and air launch them and do all the basic things Nero and Dante can, but essentially through a wide-angle lens. Playing as V gave me a new appreciation for the strategy involved with Devil May Cry, and I know strategy is probably not the S word you were hoping for in a game about striving for smoking sexy style, but it is important. You begin to realise the combat is like chess, only faster and with actual killing. As you battle through the latter stages, Devil May Cry 5 will throw certain enemies at you and you'll think, oh, I need to break this one's shield, or I have to attack this one from behind. Then it will throw them in different combinations, say a shielded enemy and 2 of those infernal spinny spiky ones, and your strategy will have to change depending on the combination of enemies you're up against. V alters your mindset during these moments. When you switch back to Nero or Dante, suddenly your brain is taking in what's happening on the periphery as well as what's immediately in front of your sword. Devil May Cry 5 wants to be defeated and it's basically training you up for the job. V is its newest tool. Okay, carrying on with reason 4. Devil May Cry perfects characterization through gameplay, or in this case, characterization through combat. What I mean by this is the combat in Devil May Cry 5 is so much more than just you swinging, leaping and shooting your way to the next cutscene. The combat is characterful. Dante, Nero and V's personalities shine through their moveset, and in doing so create a deeply satisfying connection between gamer, character and gameplay. Another classic example of characterization through gameplay would be Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series. His movements are often clumsy and frantic. He blunders his way through the game, constantly on the brink of tripping up, but never quite doing so. Similarly, Dante doesn't just get his guns out, he gets his guns out. Everything from the way these characters run, to how they hold their weapons, to how they dodge and how they punch and break dance adds to their character. But for me, the most impressive example of how the magical triangle of combat, character and gameplay fuses into one satisfying whole is in the pre-boss cutscenes. Now, fans of Devil May Cry will be familiar with these cutscenes. You encounter a boss in DMC, and it's usually massive and multi-limbed, and in this instance has an extra mouth for a stomach. Your character, Nero in this case, begins the flashy trash talk. He confidently dodges the boss's cutscene blows and sits cockily, ribbing the boss with the headstrong swagger of someone who knows he's about to win the fight. When you first play DMC, there's often a bit of a disconnect here. I remember Dante trash-talking Phantom in the original Devil May Cry, and then getting smashed to pieces as I clumsily fumbled my way to an embarrassing defeat. During these cutscenes, you're almost like, shh, no, don't make it angry. But then it happens. You get good. You play the game for long enough that you become imbued with the swagger of the protagonist. Dante's trash talk becomes your trash talk. Devil May Cry is designed for multiple playthroughs. It wants you to go back in once you've mastered it and S-rank the heck out of every single fight. Cutscene Nero and Cutscene Dante are basically like on-screen extensions of master Devil May Cry players. These cinematic sequences aren't for when you play the game first time round, they're for when your sword skills match the cocksure arrogance of the words that come out of Dante and Nero's mouths. And that feels really good. Nothing beats approaching a boss fight knowing you're about to kick said boss into next week, and then having your on-screen avatar channel that gleaming confidence. And then the final reason, the sheer mind-blowing variety of moves on offer in Devil May Cry 5 means you are never going to get bored. Yes, it takes a while to master, you have to invest, but that is where the satisfaction comes from. You'll get to a point eventually where you don't even have to check the moves list anymore. You won't remember the combos in your head, you'll remember them in your thumbs. Just talking about Dante here, and let's not forget the two other characters you'll be playing as in Devil May Cry 5, Dante has 4 different fighting styles you can switch between with a simple press of the D-pad: Trickster, Gunslinger, Swordmaster and Royal Guard. Each of these styles changes the way Dante moves and acts in combat, which feeds into the strategy point I made earlier. When you're faced with a lineup of demons that require different tactics, you'll find yourself flicking between styles on the fly, dancing through enemies with style, grace and precision. Then you've got multiple weapons to flick between. The Balrogs are a set of fiery gauntlets Dante can use to quick box Hellspawn into oblivion, delivering a devastating flurry of punches and swivel kicks, and then yes, back to breakdancing, I couldn't resist. The bottom line is, you are never going to get bored. Even if you've mastered the game, there's always something else you can try to take you outside of your comfort zone. Many action games will allow you to plow through to the end by mashing one button. Not Devil May Cry. You need to adapt, you need to learn, you need to push through that bit at the beginning where you're not very good, but come out the other end and playing Devil May Cry feels like magic. So there you go. There are 5 reasons I think Devil May Cry feels so good to play. Let us know if you agree in the comments, and also tell us what you think of Devil May Cry 5. Are you excited to pick it up? What do you make of V? Will you be attempting the platinum? Dave won't. Thanks for watching. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video and hit the notification bell so you stay up to date with everything from the world of PlayStation.
For the players.